What do you do when you are caught? Not almost caught, not accused, actually caught. There is no defense, no alibi, no way out. The crowd already knows. The religious leaders already know. And now they are dragging you through the streets. Half-dressed, humiliated, straight into the middle of the temple courtyard, in front of everyone. And then they throw you down at the feet of a man named Jesus. This is not a Bible story that stays at a comfortable distance. This is one of the most psychologically tense scenes in the entire New Testament, because everybody in this crowd thought they knew exactly how this was going to end. The woman deserved to die. The law said so, and they had rocks in their hands. But Jesus did something nobody expected. He bent down and started writing in the dirt. That's what we are unpacking today. Not just what happened, but why. Because what Jesus did in that moment was not random. It was not passive. It was not him buying time. It was one of the most precise, devastating, psychologically intelligent moves ever recorded. And most people completely miss it. You have to understand the world this woman was dragged into. Jerusalem, the temple courts, early morning. This is not a quiet side street. This is the most public, most sacred space in the entire city. People came here every day to pray, to offer sacrifices, to be close to God. And the Pharisees, the religious leaders, had turned it into a trap. Not a trap for the woman, a trap for Jesus. Here is what they were doing. Under Roman occupation, Jewish leaders had lost the legal right to execute people. Only Rome could do that. So if Jesus said, "Yes, stone her, the law of Moses demands it," he would be inciting illegal execution. Rome could arrest him. But if he said, "No, let her go," he would be openly contradicting the law of Moses. Either way, they had him, or so they thought. And standing in the middle of this political and religious chess match is a woman, a real human being, terrified, exposed, used as a prop to destroy someone else. She is the bait. Think about what that feels like. Not just the shame of being caught, not just the fear of dying, but the dawning realization that you are not even the real target of this moment. You are just a tool. We do not know her name. John does not give her one, and that is worth sitting with. She is just called the woman, caught in adultery. And in that anonymity, something strange happens. She becomes every person who has ever been exposed at the worst moment of their life. Every person who has ever stood somewhere, in a courtroom, in a family meeting, in a conversation they could not escape, and felt their private failures become public theater. She is shaking, or maybe she has gone completely numb. Sometimes fear gets so loud that your body just goes quiet. The men around her are not just angry, they are righteous. And righteous anger with rocks in its hands is one of the most terrifying things on earth. She knows what the law says. She does not need them to explain it. And somewhere in the back of her mind, she might even believe she deserves this. That is the cruelest part of shame. It does not just come from outside. It moves in, it sits down, and it starts to agree with the people who hate you. Now look at Jesus. He has just arrived at the temple. He sat down to teach. People were gathered around him, listening. And then the Pharisees interrupt everything. Loud, dramatic, intentional, and drop this woman in front of him. They demand an answer. "Teacher, Moses commanded us to stone such women. What do you say?" The crowd is watching. The Pharisees are waiting. The woman is on the ground. And Jesus bends down and starts writing in the dirt. Let's slow down here, because this is the moment everybody rushes past. Jesus is writing in the dirt. What was he writing? Scholars have debated this for centuries. Some say he was writing the sins of the accusers. Some say he was writing the names of the men in the crowd who had slept with this same woman. Some say he was simply giving himself and everyone else a moment to breathe. We do not know for certain, but here is what we do know. The act itself was a message. In a scene designed to be loud, fast, and public, Jesus introduced silence. In a moment engineered for maximum pressure, he created space. The Pharisees had built a trap that required an instant answer, and Jesus refused to play inside their timeline. That alone is worth the stopping on. Because how often do we make our worst decisions when someone is standing over us with a deadline? How often does pressure, real or manufactured, push us into reactions we later regret? Jesus would not be rushed. The Pharisees kept pushing. Answer us. What do you say? And then Jesus stood up. He did not raise his voice. He did not argue the law. He did not get into a political debate about Rome and Moses. He said 7 words. Let the one without sin cast the first stone. Then he bent back down and kept writing. Read that again. Not as a Bible verse you have heard 100 times. Read it as a man surrounded by religious leaders holding rocks, about to legally execute a woman, who just said something so clean, so precise, so perfectly aimed that nobody in that crowd could move. 1 sentence, and it dismantled everything. The oldest ones left first. That detail matters. The oldest ones. The ones who had lived the longest. The ones who had the most to remember. The ones who, if anyone in that crowd was carrying private failure, had been carrying it the long since it. They dropped their rocks and walked away. Then the younger ones followed, one by one, until nobody was left. And Jesus was alone with the woman. He stood up again and looked at her. Not past her, not at the crowd, directly at her. And he asked, "Woman, where are your accusers? Has no one condemned you?" She said, "No one, Lord." And he said, "Neither do I condemn you. Go and leave your life of sin." Here is what most people miss about this scene. Jesus did not just rescue her. He did not simply outmaneuver the Pharisees. He completely redefined what justice looks like. The Pharisees brought the law, and the law was technically correct. She had broken it. There was no dispute about the facts. But Jesus introduced something the law alone could not carry. He introduced the weight of human honesty. By saying, "Let the one without sin cast the first stone," he was not canceling the law. He was asking every person holding a rock to answer a question they had never been asked before. Who are you, exactly, to end this person's life? And when your own private history answers that question honestly, the rocks fall. This is not cheap grace. Jesus tells her clearly, "Leave your life of sin." He is not saying what you did does not matter. He is saying your failure does not get to be the final word on your life. And that difference between condemnation and conviction is one of the most important things in the entire Bible. Condemnation says, "You are what you did." Conviction says, "You are not stuck there." The Pharisees came with condemnation. Jesus offered conviction. One ends the story. The other begins a new one. But go back to the dirt. He wrote in the dirt. In Jewish tradition, writing in dust, temporary, erasable, windswept, was sometimes associated with things that would not last, with guilt that would not stand permanently. The sins written there could be wiped away. But here is the layer that should stop you cold. Earlier in the book of Jeremiah, God says something about people who turn away from Him. He says their names will be written in the dust, in the earth, where things fade. But the people who trust in the Lord, God says their names are written differently, permanently, in something that lasts. Jesus was writing in the dirt the morning He saved this woman's life. The accusers wanted her name written in stone, in history, in judgment, in finality. Jesus wrote in the dirt, temporary, erasable, gone. Think about what you are carrying right now. What accusation have you heard so many times that you started to believe it? What failure have you rehearsed so long it started to feel like your identity? What moment in your past do you keep dragging into your present? Jesus wrote it in the dirt, not in stone, not permanent, not the final word, in dirt, where the wind can take it. The crowd came that morning with evidence. They had the law, they had witnesses, they had rocks. They were ready to end her story, but they forgot one thing. They forgot who was sitting in that temple courtyard. They forgot that the one they were bringing her to, demanding an answer from, was the same one who had written law into stone on Sinai. And on this morning, he chose to write in the dirt. Because not everything needs to last forever. Not every accusation deserves a monument. Not every failure gets to define the rest of your life. She walked away that morning carrying nothing but a second chance. No verdict, no punishment, no permanent record. Just a man who looked her in the eyes and said, "Neither do I condemn you." And she walked. That is the part we forget to ask about. Not what Jesus wrote, but what she felt like when she walked out of that circle. When the rocks were on the ground and the men were gone, and the only person left was the one who had every right to condemn her, and chose not to. What does that feel like? What does it feel like when the worst moment of your life becomes the moment everything changed? Maybe you already know. Maybe that is exactly why this story found you today. Neither do I condemn you. Go. Sit with that for just a moment. Because this story was not written for people who have it all together. It was written for the person who has been on that ground, who has felt the weight of a crowd that already made up their mind about you, who has carried something so long they stopped believing it could ever be put down. If that is you, this video was for you. And if someone in your life is walking around under the weight of something they cannot seem to escape, send this to them. Not with a long message, not with an explanation. Just send it. Sometimes the right story reaches people in ways words cannot.